we're going to do roll call. Everyone here is in person. And we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And today, to help us, is Mr. Rourke Miller and Mr. Teddy Perkins. Flags over here.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, boys. All right. Next item is proposed amendments to the agenda. We do have one. We had a request for a field trip that came in today for March 3rd. And Mr. Atkins, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is a state competition for our high school DECA group, and they go every year. Mr. Cooley is kind of new at this, so he was late getting it in. We got it in this afternoon. So it is their state competition in Louisville. The funding for it, you should have it there on your table too. It should be there with you. But the funding, they fundraised for it, and then Perkins and CTE funds are used for these state competitions.
Can I have a motion to add this to the regular agenda? All right. Can I have a second? Second. All right. Got a motion by Mr. Wilson, second by Ms. McCowan. So we'll add that to the regular agenda as letter H.
Mr. Brickley, you need to call a vote.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. Motion passes 5-0. That's why we keep you here, man. All right. Next, we have the superintendent's report. Mr. Atkins?
Yep. So tonight we were scheduled to recognize our national championship cheerleading team, but they're doing what cheerleaders do, and they're supporting the team tonight over in the district tournament, and we hope to be able to get out here and get over there and do the same thing. So we play the first round of the district tournament tonight, and we didn't know this schedule just came out a couple weeks ago. So when we invited them right after their win, we didn't know they'd be over there. So we'll have to catch up with them the next time because they're over there cheering our boys on to a win tonight. So we're very proud of them, and I think this may be the first time they've ever won a national championship. I know anytime you go to the national level and compete, and not just compete but win, we won in one division and we're 5th in the other. So just a great job that Coach Richardson's done, and the girls and guys have just committed to doing what it takes to be champions and what it takes to win. So just very proud of them. Yesterday we had a great community tour of our new high school. We're still having a hard time getting settled in simply because we don't have school. The weather's not been great, and it's not cooperating with us, and hopefully we've got that behind us and we'll move forward. We have seen some illness throughout this time that we've been off, because when we spottily get back into schools, we would see a day of 90 or 91, and typically we run between 95 and 96 in our attendance. Today we were back to almost 95, so hopefully we've put the illness behind us as well. With that being said, we have used 7 of our 10 NTI days. We do have 1 regular day left. It would be a PD day we'd have to use if we were to choose. So the scary thing is the wind always seems to blow in Woodford County in the spring, and hopefully we don't see any of that this time because we have had such a bad winter. But we try to save our NTI days, and these are the most we've used in the 4 years I've been here. We've never been out of school this much. Just been a very difficult winter. I know we had talked a little bit about having a seat shortfall. The governor, he got together with some legislators and with the Commissioner of Education, and he's made that whole. The only funds that won't be available, that we're not sure available, would be the funds that were labeled if funds are available. So right now we don't know about those. So Elaine Bailey, real quick, is Elaine in here? She was here. Approximately how many folks did we have visit yesterday? 400 or 500, and we had students do the tours of the school, and the classrooms were open, and I got a lot of great feedback about the common spaces, the comfortable seating, the large auditorium, the large library. The library seems to be a crowd favorite. So you get a chance, go over and check out some things. We'll try to do some plays this spring, I think, and we're still actually working on the sports complex over there. So we'll hopefully get a little bit of an update on that this afternoon, tonight, and then move forward with that. But, Chairman, that's my update.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our good news report. Mr. Sayre, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Brickler. I would like to just take a second and talk about Dance Gold really quickly. Dance Gold is really similar to Dance Blue, the event that UK throws to give proceeds to pediatric cancer. All of the Woodford County proceeds that we make also go to Dance Blue, but we throw our own little thing. The NHS and Beta Club does it, and everybody in the community is welcome. There's no restrictions. It's on March 15th from 4 to 10, and I think it's about $20 to get in, but you can give as much as you want to, and it's for a really good cause, so just wanted to bring that to the community's attention, and that's pretty exciting because our goal is 15,000, as I've said, and that's the largest it's ever been, so we're really trying hard to hit it. Thank you.
Ms. McCowan?
Yes, my update is about the KSBA conference that we had this past weekend. So it's the annual school board member training that's held in Louisville every year, and we all got to go. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of the sessions that I found most interesting. There was one on school safety that was excellent. It was about 2 hours long, and we talked to the Kentucky Center for School Safety just about different, different things that are facing schools and challenges and barriers and how we might be able to overcome them. So that was really great. There was also a really great session on communication skills for bridging the divide. And an opportunity, one of the sessions that I attended talked about opportunity for board member self-evaluations. And I think that is something that would be really, it's interesting to consider because, we evaluate the superintendent, he evaluates the staff and principals and teachers and all those things. And I think as board members, we are certainly evaluated when it becomes time to be up for election or at the ballot box. But aside from that, I think it would be something that's really a good exercise for us to do. I think it would be worthwhile. So I found that to be very beneficial. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention was we got to hear from lots of really great keynote speakers, and they all had different messages. But the one that I liked the best was a man that had been in the foster care system from the time he was a newborn, really. And he talked about the power of one caring adult, having one caring adult in a person's life, and how that affected him, and how so many times that's the people that we see in our schools. Those are the people in our buildings. It could be a custodian, it could be a teacher, an administrator. So I thought that was really very touching, and it kind of, helps us all to take a step back and think that that's why we do what we do, and hope that we can be that one caring adult for kids in our community. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to, I didn't know Sarah was going to talk about that, but I was going to talk about it, so I'll keep talking about it. It was a great conference. All these conferences are good to go to, because not only do you have great classes, but you have the opportunity at dinners and lunches and breaks, etc., to talk to other board members from across the Commonwealth. I was able to spend some time with 4 members from Harrison County and 3 from Allen County, and we were able to talk about a whole litany of things. I think the main thing I remember is Harrison County just broke ground for a new high school. So the excitement that we all shared this year when our kids moved in, I was able to share that with them. I think they're going to come look at it. I also had the opportunity to spend some time with the Hopkins County Board. They talked about our school, and they're going to try to come later in the spring and do a tour of it and look at it, because we certainly bragged on it. I attended a session with Sarah and Sherry regarding superintendent selection, which I thought was very good. And probably the public may not understand this as good as I wish they did, but when we select a superintendent, it's not just the 5 of us looking at this. There's a selection committee made up of certified personnel, teachers, principals, parents, minority parents. And they look at all the applications before we ever see them. Not only do they look at the applications, they can also call and speak with candidates to get a better understanding. And then they will make a recommendation of 5 members for us to look at. Not only do we have the ability to look at those 5, which I look forward to, because I know the committee is going to do a great job, we also have the ability, after our own individual review of the applications, to speak with other people who may not be in the top 5 of that selection committee. So I found that very interesting, and I think the community should celebrate the fact that we're going to have many eyes from many different sections across the entire system, parents, teachers, et cetera, who will look at this, and it truly will be a group effort, and I look forward to seeing their work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Gould?
Well, I will follow the trend. I attended my first Kentucky board conference, and it was a wealth of information for me as a new board member. I was super excited to attend with the rest of my fellow board members and get to know them a little bit better and build those relationships, but also just like Mr. Ambrose said, Mr. Wilson said, around the state, just the wealth of knowledge in one room, and to be able to bounce ideas and hear different things that different districts were doing and how they were using some of the information that we were learning in sessions, and be able to network and brainstorm with them was just very fruitful, but also really learning how to be a board member, and I'm excited about taking that knowledge here. I also wanted to give a bit of a shout out. We know that Whitford County has a deep-rooted history with wrestling, so I wanted to mention that we have several members of our wrestling team, our high school wrestling team, heading to state, so I'm really excited for all of those young folks that are headed that way, and just wanted to wish them luck in the process, as well as all of our other academic and sports-related teams. But also, we got to see a couple different student groups while we were at the conference that were highlighted, being able to see what the FFA is doing as far as their lawn mowing service, that they're going to be doing the updates on lawnmowers and that sort of thing, that they're starting out with staff and faculty of our school system, but hope to eventually grow that program. So it was really cool to hear them talk about that project. And I won't take all of it, just in case. Yes, well, I didn't know if you wanted to take it. Yeah. But that's my good news.
And then the other group that we had there for CTE was our culinary, and of course they're fabulous. So it's always exciting to see our students be able to come and be on the stage at a statewide event like that. The only thing that I would add is I would like to request that we do schedule a board member self-evaluation training for our board group, and then also in the superintendent evaluation trainings, we've not had any meetings or discussion about that since the last evaluation last summer. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and schedule something for us all to get together and do some discussion there. So.
All right, I'll finish it up. Yeah, the conference was amazing. And just for everybody, so as board members, we are required to take training credits in certain subjects like finance, ethics, superintendent evaluations, but then they have a lot of other types of courses where you can learn just how to better yourself, how to relate to other administrators, how to work with other boards. There's everything from safety, prevention. There's things like how to understand school insurance, which is even worse than regular insurance for most of us, and trying to figure that out. But new projects and capital funding, and there's all these options for us to learn. So it really helps us become a better board when we go to these conferences. And I did want to also do a shout out. So we have a senior at Woodford County High School, Lindy Daly, who represented Woodford County in Kentucky's Distinguished Young Woman Program. She placed in the top 10 and received a preliminary scholastic award. She was a great representative for talent, leadership, and academic excellence of our county. So definitely wanted to give her a shout out. And I did attend the high school event yesterday and the tours, and I saw probably all those hundreds of people go through and walked around and kind of jumped in and out of tour groups. I think we had somewhere from 25 to 30 student tour guides that participated, and they worked yesterday. So thank you to all of them. Thank you to all the staff that was there helping. I know some teachers even went to be in their classrooms to answer questions. So really appreciate everybody who put the hard work into making that happen. I know it was really anticipated from the community. So thank you very much. All right. Well, I know a lot of us are here for this, so let's get with our Southside first grade performance. Bring them all in. They're coming. Yep. Had to get their zoomies out before the performance. Gotcha.
Jumpin' jacks, jumpin' jacks, like a kangaroo. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Yeah! How many can you do? Running in place, get up on your toes. Left, right, yeah! How fast can you go? We are stinky pirates, sailing on the seas. Yes, sir! Boots and buckles, swords and knuckles, pirates are we. Arr! 1, 2, heave ho! 1, 2, heave ho! 1, 2, heave ho! 1, 2, heave ho! We get very smelly, sailing on the seas. Yes, sir! From toes to pinky, we are stinky pirates, are we? Yarr! 1, 2, heave ho! 1, 2, heave ho! 1, 2, heave ho! 1, 2, heave ho!
That was great. Thank you, Stallions. You did an amazing job. Next, we're going to have our Southside Elementary School presentation. Hello, Mr. Reynolds.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and speak tonight, or let's share some great things about Southside. We have some really exciting things going on this year. As a matter of fact, last year we kind of gave you guys an introduction to some things that we were going to be doing this year with project-based learning and houses and talked about that. And so today we're here kind of to give you an update on how those things are going for us. As we get started, I do want to highlight something that is super exciting for us. If you look at our attendance from last year up to this point, we were looking at 94.28% of our students have been present. This year, we're at 95.71, so almost a point and a half percentage-wise raise this year versus last year. And I did a little extra math on that and figured out that that is 937 more days that we've had students in the classroom than we had last year. And obviously, we know that having them there is the most important thing that we can do for them to be successful in learning as much as possible. So really excited about that. So our focus mainly tonight is on the big rocks that we have for Southside this year. The first of which is student agency, and that is all about giving students some voice and choice in what they're doing, and that's mainly being accomplished through our project-based learning stuff that we're doing. So we're going to talk about that just a little bit. Next is the connection, and connection meaning not just the connection or mainly related to the houses and the camaraderie that the students have associated with that, and how much more they feel a part of our school this year. And then finally, community engagement. We have lots of community partners that are going in and helping us as part of our project-based learning, and we've done a few extra little things that are meant to draw in the parents and extra stakeholders throughout this year. So we're going to talk about all of those. The first of which is student agency. So I have listed on here some of the things that our students did in the first semester as part of their project-based learning. One of those is the one that consists of kindergarten and fifth grade together. They did a Stallion Academy. And so basically all of our projects for project-based learning start with a driving question or a need for the school or the community. And so the need for this one was that our kindergartners don't know how to do school, and they need help learning how to do school. And so as fifth graders, we need you to help show them what to do and how we're supposed to act here at Southside. And so they partnered with our kindergarten teachers and teams there early in the semester and went and visited pretty much every day in the afternoon to help be mentors to them and teach them how. And then at the end of this particular unit, they had an exhibition night where the students the kindergarten students were coming to get their houses, and they were getting to learn what house they were going to be part of. And it was completely led by our fifth grade students. And so that was part of their exhibition, is setting up the refreshments for it, presenting there, talking about the houses, and just opportunities to do things that they wouldn't normally have had. A couple of other projects that we had going on. You may have seen a piece on LEX 18 about our first grade, and their project was, why do people want to go to, or why should people want to come to Versailles? And talking about all the aspects of the community helpers around Versailles, and they did a neat project where they showed the Ball Homes subdivision that's coming up right next door to our school, and came over and some of the things they were doing with that. Our second grade has done a project this first semester about recycling and how can we reduce the amount of waste that we have here at Southside. And third grade about food insecurity. How do we help our community to become more stable in that aspect? And they were, many of them, astonished to find out there are people in our community who don't have enough food. And they certainly wanted to help to solve that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the impact that had later. And then finally, fourth grade's first semester project was about veterans and helping to meet the needs of those veterans. On this one is just some of the pictures that from our projects that we've had so far. Some of them may be familiar to you. The one in the bottom right-hand corner is about our most recent project, the American Heart Association and Heart Healthy. How can we be healthier? What can we do as kids or even adults to be healthier? How can we help save other people's lives? We actually had an opportunity to teach a lot of people, parents, family, about hands-only CPR. And that was part of their exhibition night and some of the stuff that they did there. And then, as I've been saying, exhibition nights, just examples, more of those. And these go directly along with our Portrait of a Learner stuff. All the things, all the characteristics of learners, responsible contributors, resilient learners, collaborators, all those things are exhibited in these expo nights that we do. And that is generally the culminating project, or I guess the opportunity to show your work that the students are having after they finish these project-based learning units. And it's really been great to get more people in the building this year than ever before, and for the kids to have the opportunity to show what they've been learning. So I've hit the first big rock for you, and Ms. Durr is going to talk about a couple of the others.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mackenzie Durr, and I'm the administrative dean here at Southside, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about just the amazing effect that these big rocks have had on our school, but most of all, our students. So the Expo Nights leads us directly into our community engagement Big Rock. And one goal that we had this year was we really have an amazing community of people. We have resources, we have stakeholders with a wealth of knowledge and experience that we can share with our students. We just have to do it, and we have to open the doors and get our community involved and be intentional with that. And luckily, project-based learning has truly paved the way for that, because like Mr. Reynolds said, with our projects, we have a driving question that fuels our projects, and a lot of times that does involve the community. So we've been really intentional with trying to engage the community and our family members. We've had several opportunities to have sip and share sessions, and that is when Mr. Reynolds and I invite our families in. We have coffee, and we just chat about the things going on at Southside, because as a mom of a student, I'm obviously immersed in the school setting, but not all of our families are. So it's important for them to know what's going on. Our first session featured our houses, because that was a very exciting thing at our school, but it also, a lot of our parents didn't really know what the hype was. So we had an opportunity to invite them in and talk about that. We also did one featuring project-based learning, so they were able to really understand what PBL was and what it meant to our school. We're going to have another one all about testing, so about the KSA test, because once again, those can be question marks for our parents, especially those third grade students that are doing this for the first time. So we just want to engage them as much as we can. Because of this community engagement push, we've gotten an opportunity to have several really invested supporters in what our students are doing. During our Heart Healthy focus with the first grade PBL, there was actually a doctor out of Cincinnati that found out what our first graders were doing, and he said, I'm driving to Woodford County. I want to be there for this expo night, and I want to talk to these parents and these kids about hands-only CPR. And he just felt very passionately about this, and that's a road that we were able to pave for him because of this push. We had the Lieutenant Governor into Southside today, so that was amazing. She kicked off one of our brand new projects for fourth grade. We also had the mayor in today, so it was a very exciting day for Southside Elementary, but they're helping us kick off these projects, and we're developing relationships with these supporters that will continue on as these projects grow and continue. We also have had the opportunity to really partner with people in our community because of our first grade project with Ball Homes. They are interested in continuing that partnership. We have a continuing partnership with the Veterans Association, with our food pantry, and what we're realizing with project-based learning, we've learned a lot of things, as you do when you're rolling out something new, but we're learning that these relationships are going to continue, and they're turning into these legacy projects with these strong relationships with our stakeholders, and we could not be more excited about it. So you can see just some pictures and some examples. We had Miss Kentucky come in for our fourth graders last semester. We're continuing our partnership with Daisy Hill, and you've got our fourth graders at the bottom right with the Veterans Association. So just lots of exciting partnerships that have blossomed because of that. And one really special thing that we are learning about project-based learning, and we want our students to understand too, is our impact doesn't stay at Southside. And we've really embraced that, I feel like, as a district with our Portrait of a Learner, because it encompasses what we want our kids to have. It encompasses what I want my daughters to have, those characteristics. And it's global. It's a lifestyle that we want. And with Southside, PBL impacts more than just our little school in Woodford County. As you can see, we had, because of our 4th grade PBL, they equated the supplies that were donated to a financial value for us, and it was $7,000 raised in just those supplies towards the Veterans Hospital. Towards the food pantry, we had 5,905 items donated. It was our biggest donation yet. And I think it was the biggest donation to the food pantry. So we were super excited and proud of our students for embracing that. And then finally, the most recent one, we had $16,000 that was raised for the American Heart Association because of this project. So our students are seeing, not only they're feeling the benefit of project-based learning, that authentic, exciting, vibrant learning opportunity, but they're making a difference. And they're learning that they can make a difference because of this. So we've been really, really proud of that. And finally, our last big rock was all about connection. We feel as though we have a great culture at Southside, but we can always improve. We wanted to strengthen that. And we were inspired, as you know, if you were listening last time we were here, if you were around, we were super inspired by Dixie Elementary, and then we had a chance to go to Ron Clark this past summer, and our excitement was just set on fire after going there, and we wanted to implement the house system at Southside because we just wanted to improve the connections that we already have at our school and improve that foundation. So every single staff member and student at Southside Elementary is put into a house, and that is every student, but that's also every staff. So our janitors have a house, our cafeteria workers have a house, every person that works at Southside is put into a house. So immediately we have connections all across our building that might not have been there before. We have our amazing cafeteria staff that's serving food and saying, hey, I saw Al Turismo's up on top, and we're just building those connections. So it's been amazing to see the pride and the camaraderie that has happened because of this house system. And it's also given us an opportunity to recognize our students in a positive way. They're striving to get house points for their team, and I'm happy to announce that when I left today, Al Turismo, which is my team, was #1. So we're hoping to keep that up, but they're working to get these house points to go towards their team. And the house points are awarded for outstanding character moments. So moments that they're showing this outstanding, uplifting character that we want to recognize. We want to recognize them when they are being good human beings. We want to recognize them when they stop what they're doing and help somebody pick up something, or pick up trash that's not theirs, or open the door for a teacher that needs help. So we recognize these moments and we give them house points for their outstanding character moments, and they're striving to be on top. But they're also doing it in a way that's supportive and still supporting all of the other teams on board. It's also been amazing because we've been able to weave this into project-based learning because everybody loves a good friendly competition. So when they did the food drive, we wove this into our PBL and we incentivized it by saying, okay, the house that brings in the most cans gets this reward, and the kids absolutely love it. We wore Isabindi colors today because our Isabindi house was the one that raised the most money for the American Heart Association. So we're trying to take all of these big rocks and really weave them together in support of our students. So some of my favorite pictures are when the students find out their house, and you can just see how genuinely excited that they are. Another one of my favorite things that we do, we actually did it today. We have new students at Southside that come often, and it can be scary and overwhelming as a new student when you arrive somewhere. And when they get to Southside, we have them spin the wheel, and they are immediately put into a house after they spin that wheel. So suddenly, as a new student, you immediately have someone that has your back, and they're genuinely excited to welcome you in. This young lady that spun the wheel today, we give them shirts, and she hid it behind her back, and she arrived at her 5th grade classroom, and she showed everyone her shirt, and immediately the room erupted in cheers. So she just felt that spirit and that camaraderie, even being brand new to Southside. So it's just helped us strengthen those relationships and just build those connections. And it's a goosebump moment for sure when they get their houses, but it's wonderful to watch them support each other and just build on those connections throughout our school. So another really exciting thing is that we are not done yet. We have been elated at the support of everyone around us during this journey. It's scary trying something new, and it can be daunting and overwhelming, and all of us have felt all of those things, but we have gotten so much support from really just all of you guys, and our teachers have been amazing about embracing this, and we're going to continue to just fuel this fire and let it spread. So we are continuing our partnership with Magnify Learning within this next year. So we're going to go through another jumpstart for PBL, learn more strategies, more ways that we can just continue to integrate this way of learning, this vibrant, authentic way of learning into our classrooms. We have another group going to Ron Clark Academy this summer, and I'm super excited for them to really just experience all that that is. And then ultimately our anchor is just going to continue to be our Portrait of a Learner, because each one of those competencies, each one of those characteristics are what we want our students to be. And we just thank you guys so much for all of your support in this endeavor and really just giving us the green light and supporting us all along the way. So do you guys have any questions for us before we officially conclude?
I have a question about the houses. So when, let's say you've got a kindergartner and they get their house, do they have the same house through the whole, okay.
They
I didn't know
do.
if they switch every year. That's great.
Yes, so which
I
will
love
just
that.
build, that spirit even more, because, by the time they're in fifth
Yeah.
grade, that's their house.
That is really cool. Thank you all for coming and speaking. It really is exciting to hear everything that's going on at Southside, and love seeing the pictures and love hearing about all the new things that are happening. So thank you both.
I loved your community engagement. I love that every student has the opportunity to participate in that, and I think that is just something that lets you all shine in your uniqueness, but also those lived experiences that those students are being able to take with them as they continue to grow and learn. And I love the connection and belonging of the house system. I think it's a great thing that you all are doing. So keep up the good work, for sure.
Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm really sad that we're not going into the schools anymore this year. I lost that vote in December, so I'm just going to let it go. But I really miss being in the building, because you just feel the culture and the love and the climate of a school when you come in. And there are just people everywhere, and I think it's a lot easier to kind of keep the kiddos, together. And it just seems a little bit hard for you all out here, so I apologize for that extra work. But I will say, I saw all the green and I was thinking, oh my gosh, was it St. Patty's Day? and now I realize it's our house system.
That's
it makes so
right.
much sense. So thank you all so much for all you do, and happy retirement coming up to you, Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah, you weren't going to get out of here without us saying thank you for all the work you've done over the many years. Thank you for everything you've put into Southside. I definitely want to speak because I have a third grader at Southside right now. I didn't know Altruismo was winning right now, so she'll be pumped about that. But, you mentioned the projects they're doing, and I will tell you as a parent, when she came home, she was the third grade food insecurity. When she was excited to come home and talk to me for 30 minutes about food insecurity, she brought her Chromebook. She had a presentation that she had created and had a little video of herself talking about it. Like, as a parent, I don't have the words for that. So the fact that you can build that into what they're doing and get a third grader excited and kindergarten through fifth grade excited about what they're doing, and they get to see the impact, that is so impressive. So thank you all for the work that you put into our children. Very much appreciated.
Mrs. Durr, everything that you spoke of without directly saying Portrait of a Learner, you define Portrait of a Learner perfectly. So thank you very much for taking that, because we do feel like it'll change the future of how we educate our kids in Woodford County. And I think it's shown that over the last year. So thank you guys both for really taking that home for us. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have, I guess I need a motion for that. Do I need a motion for approve? Yeah. Can I have a motion to approve FY26 student insurance renewal? Have a motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second.
second by Ms. McCowan. And discussion?
Or I didn't know if we would have a presentation or not.
Yeah, I
We have a
think
couple.
they're going to come up.
right. My name is John Roberts. Work with Roberts Insurance in Richmond, Kentucky. Our agency insures over 160 schools doing student accident insurance. 3 years ago, you were one of the handful of districts that did not have student accident insurance. You all decided to purchase it, not just for your athletes, but for all students. And since that time, we've averaged about 40 claims per year. Your district's unique. Normally, we see 65% athletic claims, 35% non-athletic claims, but the non-athletic claims are just as high as the athletic claims. We've had everything from recess, PE, to cutting fingers in culinary class. So the fact that you did purchase it for all students has truly benefited the kids of Woodford County. So from where we do work with so many districts, we're able to access multiple markets. So every year we shop your account with all the best student accident carriers around. There's some people that we don't go to because we haven't had as good a claims experience as with other carriers. So this year we marketed your account with Axis, Zurich, as well as Hartford Insurance. The best price is the renewal with Axis. This provides the same coverage and benefits as your current policy, and it's actually a flat renewal. In the insurance field, that's rare. Most insurance rates, health insurance, property and casualty, are going up. So we were very pleased that the renewal with Axis is flat at $60,264. Seeing the other two quotes being both above $63,000, we feel the best option would be the renewal with Axis.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I had a question about that because on the page that we're looking at now, the cover sheet said renewal with Axis, but the paragraph just above the numbers there says Zurich American
Good
Insurance.
question. Yes. So every student accident policy, you have two layers. You have the base layer, which is the 0 to 25, and then you purchase catastrophic coverage on top of that. So the base layer, which is what you have now with Axis, and then anything above that goes to Zurich, which goes to $7.5 million. So every student accident plan, you have two layers, and that's those two layers.
Okay, and just one more question. Is the student or this insurance, is it used first, or if a student gets injured, is their parents' insurance used first, and then this is second, like
Great question.
Geico or
So
something?
if there is no parental insurance, we step up and we're primary. If there is parental insurance, we're secondary. So we'll pick up co-pays, deductibles, and looking at your loss runs, there's a lot of claims where there's still no insurance, so we're stepping up and becoming primary for those claims.
That's what I was wondering, was of the 40 average claims per year, how many of them,
About
is this the
25%, this is responding first.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did have just a couple of things. So I think it's always been around 65,000 a year.
Yes.
So, and we've had it for 3 years, so that's around a couple $100,000 for the insurance. And then if we approve it tonight, it'll be around $250,000 for the 4 years for the insurance policies that we've paid for these. And so I guess my point is just that that's a whole lot of money. And this is insurance that prior to the district picking up the $60,000 or $65,000 a year price tag, that parents are able to just purchase on their own. They're able, if they want this insurance, they can purchase it. And so the district, prior to 3 years ago, I think we had this as an option. We sent it out to the parents, and they could sign up if they wanted. We only had maybe a couple of parents that signed up for it. But if we did not do this insurance, say we voted no, could parents still purchase this on their own?
We always have a voluntary option to where if parents do want, but communication of that is always a challenge. A parent could lose their job, be in between jobs. Are they thinking, oh, we have to purchase voluntary coverage? I would say yes, that you've spent $60,000 a year roughly on the student insurance, but how much is that helping you on your general liability? One thing with Kick is Hurt is that medical bills are included. Well, this is covering medical bills without the cost of defense. So this is actually helping you on your general liability as well. So the voluntary is always an option, but this is the best coverage, and it covers any school-sponsored, school-supervised activity.
And Mr. Smith, do you know if our general liability insurance has gone up in cost over the past 3 years, or if it has declined in cost over the past 3 years?
It's followed the market and gone up.
Okay, I just wondered.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you said about 25% of the claims, this becomes primary?
Yes.
That we're seeing?
Yes.
And that's for athletic and non-athletic both?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Anybody else?
What about the other claims? How does it get from primary to second? Like, I understand that this is primary when they don't have health insurance, but if you have a primary health insurance, how does it pick up? Does it replace, you mentioned co-pays and that sort of thing? How does
Yes,
that-
whenever
What is
there,
that process?
whenever there is a student accident claim, y'all are so good at filing a claim form. And so that claim form goes to the provider. The parental insurance pays. Anything outstanding of that goes to K&K Insurance, which is who pays the claims for this account.
So basically, whatever the parent's insurance on their children does not cover, you all will kick in and cover
Yes.
the rest?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
That's for every student in the county as well.
Yes,
And I would just imagine if you had an option to pick up this insurance, you would have probably picked up your own insurance prior to picking this one up.
yes.
Anybody have questions?
No,
All right.
I was just thinking, just to put kind of what I'm thinking out there, I think we've been able to do this the last, 3 years, I think it was that you were saying. And in my mind, the cost, and I know $60,000 doesn't seem like it's a lot of money, but at a time when, things are tight for everybody, insurance is going up, cost of everything is going up, food, all the things that we have here. We've got a building that's sitting empty. We've, are working on this building and a new school. So, 40 claims a year average. I know that in 25% of them, this is the first insurance. I think prior to the 3 years, folks have had the opportunity. I don't think it would cost as much to pick this up if you did not have insurance, than going out to the marketplace and having to put yourself on insurance if you were in between jobs or something like that. So I think that's my biggest concern with this cost right now.
And just to clarify, like, this doesn't cover, like, if a child, we get this insurance for them, they're sick, they go to the doctor, this doesn't cover
It's an
that kind of
accident
thing.
policy,
Right,
correct.
so it's only just,
Yep.
right, so it wouldn't really take the place of primary insurance, but if there was an accident, it
Yes.
is the primary accidental insurance. And then, just to place in context, I think when we passed the working budget, we were told we would be around a $2 million, $2.5 million deficit. So our expenses, we're gonna be $2.5 million more than our income. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind.
Can you give an average of what it's saving families? So like if, say my child, knock on wood, gets hurt at a sporting event, and we have primary insurance, we've met our deductible, or maybe we haven't. What does that look like as far as like what's the cost benefit ratio, I guess is what I'm asking for families?
Every health insurance plan is different, so.
Can you give a range, maybe?
Well, I would say that in 2022, we paid out 47,000 in claims. The other insurance was about 112,000, so that would be parental insurance. And then this year, other insurance paid 58,000. We've already paid out 26, so that'll probably end up 52,000 in claims. So we're actually, the renewal's under what we're paying out in claims. So it's been very beneficial for your district.
Yeah, and I just keep thinking about the 25% of the claims and the families that we can cover this for. And when we look at our entire budget, and not to say 60,000 isn't a lot of money, because it is, but in the grand scheme of our budget and what this provides for the students and the families, I don't think this is an exorbitant expense when kind of the return that we get on it.
But again, it's only for when, it's not.
Accident.
It's just
Sure.
an accident.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
It's not child visits or anything of that nature.
Correct.
It's just an accident
Yep.
situation. So does our
Like
other-
what we had with McGoffin County when there's a bus wreck. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're paying up to $7.5 million for
Mm-hmm.
every kid on that bus. So, yeah, I know it's expensive, but we can pay up to $7.5 million for each individual claim.
Mm-hmm.
And those would be like medical claims, not like if there's a lawsuit or something of
Yes,
that nature.
yes.
Yeah, just the medical claims. So there could still be, lawsuit or pain and suffering or those kinds of things that would be, I guess, in a lawsuit.
And our liability insurance doesn't cover these claims as is without this additional insurance, is that correct?
Liability only pays if you're negligent.
So if there was a bus wreck and it was considered to be negligent, then our liability insurance would kick in. But if a child cuts their finger in a culinary class, then that child can go to the emergency room.
Oh,
get
yeah.
stitches.
Yeah,
And if they have insurance and their insurance can cover the full capacity, then this insurance doesn't kick in, correct? But if there is a deductible that's not being met, they can cover the difference.
or anything above that, yes.
What's our average claim look like per person? Like how much is it saving our families per person, I guess, is on average that have?
The average claim cost is about $800 to $900 per year.
Per family that uses it?
Yes. And I would also say that KHSAA requires you to have at least 25,000 of athletic coverage. So this meets that as well.
That's good to know as well.
That is good to know. So we would have to have another policy anyway.
You can either insure just your athletes or all students.
Right.
And
So we would have to have an athletic coverage no matter what.
Yes.
So this covers them and everybody else. That's really good to know.
What's the cost difference between the two? So it's
Did you
40,
say 25,000 and this is,
Oh,
25
for
is-
athletic only, it would save about 5,000 or 6,000 if you just insured your athletes.
okay. So
That's it.
in the grand scheme of things.
Okay.
So it's not
we have-
$25,000 insurance for athletes?
Excuse me?
I got confused. It's probably me. So a minute ago, you said KHSA requires you to have $25,000.
Yes, because their
For
catastrophic
athletes?
policy covers from 25 to 7.5 million. So they require you to have 25 to meet their deductible.
In coverage, not the cost.
Yes.
And that coverage you said was about $5,000 less than
Yes.
if we went and insured everybody.
And
Okay.
the majority of your claims are non-athletic.
So really, we're only spending around $5,000 more for this coverage than the required coverage that we would have to have
Okay,
anyway.
KHSAA says.
Okay, that's an important thing to
Yes.
clarify.
That's good
Yeah.
information to have.
Mr. Chairman, I think, and that also covers every student. It's just not athletes, it's every student. And I'm sure that most people around this table have insurance. But a lot of our families do not have insurance, through no fault of their own. They just do not have insurance. And oftentimes, when you don't have insurance, then the children don't get the care that they need. This allows the students to get that care. And I'd like to speak in favor of the motion.
I second, because I feel like it's not fair just to, if for just the difference, if it was an astronomical amount, that's different, but, like you said, that there's many students that are non-athletes that also receive those claims, and we have lots of students that are non-athletic students, so.
Okay.
And so you said the difference is only $5,000. So if we
Yes.
had to do a policy for $25,000 for our athletes, it's going to cost $6,000,
Less.
$60,000?
Probably 55.
56, 55, 56, 6,000 less than the 60.
For just the athletes?
Yes,
So for 6,000 more, we can cover all our
Everyone.
entire
Yeah.
student body.
yes.
I think that's a fair thing to do.
I have one more question though, and just so we understand, the athletes are not being covered by we don't have any additional policy or coverage in place that covers just our
No.
athletes? Okay.
This covers everything.
Got it.
Any more discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving FY26 student insurance renewal?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you for answering our questions.
Thank you for having me.
All right, next we have our new high school project update. Welcome back, Clay.
Been here a few times. I will keep the high school pretty short and sweet, but feel free to ask questions after if you have any. The total project cost remains the same. The total construction cost to date remains the same. The billing is a little over 59 million, which is 97%. That final 3% does not represent work not complete. Well, in a sense, it's punch list, but the biggest portion is the closeout documents and all the final documents that we got to have from contractors. So there's a few direct purchase orders that kept me from getting, I can't remember how many we have on this job, probably near 100 plus direct purchase orders. A lot of these suppliers are from out of state. They're from all over the country, their offices. So dealing with them on the final documents can take some time, but we're almost through all those. A lot of it just results to, like, if there's a remaining balance of, sometimes it's like 2 cents. Well, we got to issue paperwork to get that 2 cents back to you. And then they're saying, well, we're showing a zero amount. And so they have to go back through and look at where the billing went wrong, where the 2 cents is. And it's just a lot of conversation over very little. So, interior punch list, almost the vast majority of it has been completed. A lot of the items we're waiting on are remake items for casework. Some of the items were found to be wrong months ago. They finally came. They fabricated them wrong again, or the wrong finish, so they had to be fabricated again. So there's minute items like that, and then there's exterior punch, which we've talked about. A lot of that will have to take place in the spring. If you've noticed, the erosion has been substantial. It's just been a brutal couple months with the water. We always deal with that when you're trying to have a winter opening and all the seeding and sod goes down, but the amount of rain and weather we've had has been tough. So again, in the spring, that'll get dressed up and reseeded, but not much you can do with it until then. So we'll try to we're trying to time out everything so it's not an inconvenience to the staff or students. Of course, the exterior, we'll try to make a huge dent, if not all of it, on spring break would be ideal, in my opinion, as long as that works with the district. So, contingency log remains the same, no change there. Still sitting with 72%, a little over $2.1 million. Track and field, total project cost remains the same. Total construction cost to date, that there is a proposed change order coming at you after this, so that's been incorporated into here. It's now $5,432,552.36. Billing through February is $3,947,718.89. That's 73% completion. There is also on that change order, I've gave an update on weather days throughout the project. Now that we have the lighting change order, those weather days have been incorporated into that change order. I think from September to now, it's 24 weather days. So that puts it at a substantial completion of March 14th with the final completion of April 12th. Last meeting, one of you asked me about I'm not sure who, Sarah. We did talk to the building inspector. They have no issue with that. The only thing I would say is if it could be coordinated with us just to make sure, at the entry point, there's nothing going on, if people need to get in there before it's finished. But the building inspector has no issue with issuing, and don't quote me on this, I didn't ask him to issue paperwork, but when he says no issue, I think that means he'll put out a TCO for the track. Of course, we wouldn't want students in the bleacher or concession restroom area until it's completely completed, so completely finished. The change order 5, that is adding a flagpole lot, and we'll get into that after this, but that is incorporated into this. So as we've discussed before, the contingency showing a negative here because as far as the phase 2 or the track and field, I started calling it athletics complex at this point because we're way beyond a track and field. But I did incorporate both contingencies from both projects here just to show that number, which between the 2 projects, there is $2,126,140.14 remaining. Past third.
Clay,
Go ahead.
correct, those monies can only be used on these projects as well.
Correct.
They can't be used anywhere else in the district, so they have to be used on these projects. Then, once you close the project out, you can transfer it, but
Yeah.
they have to be spent on these projects.
Right. And what was I gonna, something on that? Oh, and again, that's just because we're trying not to revise the BG1 over and over again, and once we have all these final credits back from phase 1, we'll know the exact dollar amount left for phase 2, or the sports complex.
Just a quick question. What is the timeline for the punch outs on the current high school? Like all the little things that still need touched up or fixed?
I'm going to say exterior is a little harder for me because it is solely weather dependent.
more
The
interior.
Interior, other than the gym, some skimming and recoat. There's a thing with the gym floor. There's a lot of little poly balls. Evidently, that's became the norm with gym floors. I don't know. I think it's related to the poly that's being used. But anyway, they skim it and recoat it. There's no issue with the contractor doing it. It'll just have to be like when you all can go without the gym for 3 to 5 days, I believe. I think it's closer to 5. So, like, they're good to do it anytime. It's just how that works with you all. As far as the others, I really don't see any item remaining past March as long as there's no hiccups. I'd like to say 2 weeks. There's one supplier that we constantly are told things and promise things that does not deliver. And so, to promise you like 2 weeks, but there's no reason it shouldn't be finished in the next month.
Okay.
You know, like things like those cushions that had to be removed, you know, it's like they came, but they were a little too long, so they have to take them back and fix them. So I don't see why we would be still dealing with that kind of stuff at the end of March, but we are relying on hundreds of people to do what they say they're going to do. So.
Clay, as an old basketball player, I know you'll understand. I hope we're not out there till the end of March. That gym, anyway.
Out of the
Still in
gym?
there. Yeah, I hope we're still using it through the end of
Oh,
March.
absolutely, yeah. And again, that contractor, and they won't be paid out, and it's part of the warranty. They have no problem performing the work as soon as we say go. So there will be no issue with them correcting it, but,
There's quite
They-
a smell that comes with that too, right? When they put I just remember being in the Falling Springs gym right after they redid their floors, and it was pretty intense. So
Yeah.
just wondering, I think about not only not use, but having students not in the building so they don't have to breathe in those chemicals
right.
would probably be good.
And then I just did want to clarify, so the Phase 2 project is negative.
It's
At this point,
contingency
it's,
currently sits as negative, yes.
so it's negative. And then there's separate BG1s, and the high school and the track and field were done on separate BG1s because I think that's what Frankfurt told us we had to do. And so at some point, Mr. Atkins, do you anticipate doing what? Taking money out of the high school contingency and moving it to the track and field to cover that?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And then the other
Finish up
thing,
those projects.
I'm sorry?
To finish up all the project, yeah.
Yeah, and so those were separate, done separately because KDE required it. And so I guess, I don't know if we would have to close out the high school project and then reallocate some of the remaining money back to the
I'm
track
not
and
even
field.
sure, do we have to do it that, do we have to go through that process of closing one and and reallocating the money? I think we just can, I think the contingency for both projects, but
Well, yeah, but they're separate for some reason. So in my mind, I'm thinking probably they were separate for a reason. And so But the question I have is, so when we close the project out and there's this $2.1 million left in the high school contingency, that would it would come back. We don't have to spend that on these projects to find ways to spend $2 million just because that's in the contingency. That would come back to us. Or we could choose to use the contingency and do some more projects and some additional things, but it doesn't have to be spent on these projects.
Sure, but it can't be spent anywhere else until the projects are closed out.
Right, and then we close them out and we could just put that money right back
But
in
if
the
we have
general
a
fund if
deficit
we.
in one, we would certainly want to clear that up in the other.
Yeah, let me clean this up just a
Thank
little bit. So the two different projects, as Clay mentioned, I look at those as one project together in Munis. The available balance is left in both. We didn't technically have to do two different phases or two different projects on the BGs when we did it, but just to keep things cleaner because of the way the bonds were issued and the bids were issued, we had the primary high school project done. We had all that. So to kind of keep it cleaner, we went ahead and did a separate BG1 for the athletic complex at the end.
Because Shane, if you'll recall, we added those as options at that time. If you'll recall, we came back and added options to that initial project.
That's
And
right.
I think some was bonded a certain way and some was general fund, so I think there was some issues there too, so probably it made sense to do two separate ones.
Yeah, and so with the contingency that Clay illustrates on his documents does not take into account all the owner-provided equipment that we've had to provide. So I've stated this a couple of times throughout project updates, that contingency is from his perspective as the construction contingency. That is not actually the available dollars left on the project. So we're right around 1.1 million as far as available dollars left in total on the project, because of all the, as I mentioned, owner-provided equipment that we've had to buy, just things that we've had to have in the building since then. So to answer the question, we don't have to wait until everything's completely finished with the phase one to close the project and transfer the money. We can transfer the money as soon as, so what we're waiting on, as Clay mentioned, is to get the final numbers, because we don't want to bring this to you month over month, just continually revising BG1s. We want to get it done the least number of times as possible. So he's getting his final invoices from all of the vendors, all the direct purchase orders, as he's mentioned. We'll get those numbers tidied up. We'll hopefully come back and revise the BG1s one time. We'll get all the monies transferred between the projects to cover all the things that we need to cover. And you'll see when we do that, as of right now, there's about $1.1 million left in that, just depending on what else we have to buy from now to the end of the project. But that's essentially where we stand on the financials of it.
Thank you for clarifying that, because when I'm seeing the project that we've got a couple million left in contingency, I'm thinking, okay, we've got everything done. That would come back to the district and go back to the general fund, so that would maybe help cover some of the deficit. But it sounds like what you're saying is really that 2.1 is not really, like the number's closer to 1.1 after you take into account all about some additional expenses and stuff. So if the project closed out tomorrow, then you think probably 1.1 million would come back to us. And we don't necessarily have to spend that or keep it open or do new things at the track and field. That would just come back to the general fund. However, what Mr. Atkins is saying is that we could leave it open and then use some of that money at the track and field.
No, we would have to use it at the track and field to cover the deficit, the $55,000
Right,
deficit.
but not the full 1.1 million. We would have to cover the deficit.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but yeah.
Assuming the project were completed tomorrow and we had $1.1 million left, we could close both projects out. However, the residual dollars cannot go back to the general fund because those were bonded for capital construction. So they would go into the Fund 360, and we would have to use those on other capital projects that we would create new BG1s for.
And we could also use that for bonding potential possibly?
I think so, yes.
Okay. That makes sense. I wasn't sure because I know we devoted millions and millions and millions of dollars from the general fund to the project. So I wasn't sure if maybe some of that could be recaptured by the general fund, but it sounds like probably not.
Well, and if you'll remember, we did recapture, so any of the general fund expenditures prior to selling bonds in 2022, I think there was a little over $1 million, if I remember correctly, that the district had spent on architectural costs and what have you prior to bond selling. So we did make the general fund whole back with those dollars probably 2 years ago on that. So we did transfer the dollars that the general fund had spent prior to selling the bonds. But yeah, any available residual dollars now have to be used for capital construction projects, so.
Thank you.
Can I ask a really simple question? Where are the bleachers going? Or is that when you say the concrete pads for the bleachers, is that on?
Well, and this is an outdated, so I don't have an aerial because everything's covered in snow, but that pad to the left right there.
Yes, is that where the bleachers
yeah.
are? When you pass the
That
road?
is, yeah, the
Okay.
footers are, I've got some up close pictures, but no overview.
Well, when I drive by it, that's where I imagined them going,
Mm-hmm.
is there, but then I saw it looked like the concrete on the other side, so I thought, maybe they're on the other side, so that,
Yeah.
it was more curiosity, thank you.
Yeah, and I apologize on the construction
Oh, goodness.
contingency. That is the only numbers I see, so I truly, that's the only, I should probably start wording that differently, but from a construction standpoint, in the documents I see, that's where it stands, so.
No, that makes perfect sense. I just like knowing in my mind, kind of, and that's a little bit of a difference, so I'm glad
Right.
that he clarified. But yeah, no, that makes sense how you do it.
As far as what's been completed in the past 30 days, of course, everybody knows the weather's been brutal. There has been production made, though. Prime and paint is completed. The coaling doors have been installed, the 3 on the track side. Bleacher foundations after today are roughly 50% complete. Mechanical and plumbing rough-in is complete, and the grease trap is installed. In the 30-day look ahead, complete the electrical rough-in. Hopefully this week, they're nearing completion now. Install and finish gyp board, which is just waiting on the electrical rough-in before it takes off. Complete site drainage and concrete. Should be able to make a lot of progress and complete that in the next week or so now that we have some good weather. Install stainless steel countertops and install plumbing fixtures. Here's the cooling doors. The stainless countertops will fall underneath those cooling doors. There's a look at all the plumbing at the restroom chase. And there is some of the bleacher foundations. One's poured, one ready for pour. And that's it. We're tracking right now with the revised substantial completion. I'm showing they're roughly on the March 17th. So I think in the instance in the past 2 months, the weather has honestly outweighed the days they get back, just because it doesn't account for the days it's froze over and not melting and so on. So it's been hard to get any kind of production with the weather, but I do think it's still obtainable to hit that 14th date, but they'll have to really pick it up the next couple weeks. So, and we'll have to hope for good weather.
Anybody else got anything before we move to the next? All right. Might as well stay where you are.
Yeah.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve Phase 2 change order number 5? Motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second.
second by Ms. McCowan.
So this PR7 is flagpole lighting, similar to some of the lighting situations we had on the high school. There was no flagpole lighting routed to the flagpole, and Mr. Atkins and Mr. Smith indicated that they would like that to be lit. The design team and I think all of us thought that was necessary as well. So the cost for that was $8,395. And then, like I mentioned before, the weather days from September to January are included in this change order.
I make a motion to approve change order number 5.
I think we already, yeah, we have. So, but
Sorry.
has anybody got any questions or discussions on that? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right. Next, we have our instructional and equity report. Mr. Asher?
Mr. Asher's trying to get to his son's basketball game this evening. So
Yeah, so the good news, well, I'll go ahead and start with that then.
There you go.
CDIP is on later, but I'm going to use my time tonight to go over the Comprehensive District Improvement Plan. So ask your questions now, please. All right, it's the 113th day of school. and when we're at it. As he was talking about the interruptions with the weather, we've had those obviously with instruction, but I will say our systems, our processes are all in order, and so whether it's NTI or whether it's coming off a break, the schools get right back at it and do a wonderful job. All right, so our district improvement plan. Let me first start with our paths to the portrait, because as you heard the language earlier, those are our big rocks for this year. It is an absolute pleasure to listen to the school present, Southside present, because if you look at these paths, they talked about every single one of those. And back in the summer, we talked about green light culture, and I think Ms. Durr mentioned green light, but they've hit pedal to the metal, I told them, and they've taken that green light and they're definitely running with it. So it's great to see this vision come to fruition and what they're doing with it. The reason I have this up here is because this is our big rocks as a district, and we also then put with it what we are calling strategic plan. I won't go through all the details of this. You'll see it later once it's complete, but these are the steps towards these different paths you see here over time, starting with this school year all the way out to 27 and 28. I say that because we combine that with our CDIP and CSIPs to really focus on continuous improvement. So this is something I use with our principals. You come into the year, you have a Big Rock action plan, whether it be district level or school level, and then you get your results back in October, and you go through this process. Okay, now what do we do with those results? And then out comes your CDIP and CSIP. So some of the things will be very similar to your Big Rock. Some are adjustments, and some just fit the overall template or format of the district improvement plan or school improvement plan, either one. I always like to mention this as well. We utilize MTSS processes. That's how we review, analyze, and apply data. And let me get into this. Here's our CDIP format, meaning that there are 7 required district goals, and all those, and what this arrow represents there is that it aligns to our accountability system. So every area that we are accountable, we get indicators for and ultimately colors for, are what has to be in your CSIP and CDIP. There is a specific format that we have to follow, and it includes the goal, objective, strategy, those strategies are one of the Kentucky key core work processes. Activities, I've got that highlighted in green because that's what I'm going to talk about today. As you can tell, there's a lot to this plan, so I don't want to go through every little detail with you tonight. I'm just going to highlight the activities. Measure of success, progress monitoring, and ultimately funding. So you all have the actual attachment, if you've had the opportunity to look at that, but I've kind of condensed it a little bit, and I've put on little icons just as talking points for me and try to show you connections to other areas. So the first one here, let's get into reading. The first goal area is in reading and math, your 2 core assessed areas, all the way from 3rd grade through middle school, and then again at 10th grade. So first off, the reading strategy here, this aligns to the Kentucky Reads to Succeed Act that was passed a couple sessions ago. And so what we are doing at this point is selecting what they call HQIR, High Quality Instructional Resource. We did that for primary grades based on Reads to Succeed. Now we're looking to do that at secondary grades. The extent of this, I want to highlight that little asterisk there. We have applied for a grant. I spoke to that a couple months ago when we first started that. We're waiting to hear back here in March. So the extent of which we can do this is heavily dependent upon that grant, and that's reflected over there in the funding column. We continue with our PLC work, absolutely fundamental work. A great protocol we found now is the REAL protocol to identify essential standards. Mr. Hunley's leading this work, and what we're really trying to do is make room for these deeper learning type activities. We are condensing down to the essential standards so that there is more time to go in depth with those and do those type of project-based learning things that you heard Southside talk about. This is another one linked to Reads to Succeed. This is the professional learning, so basically the professional development that goes along with the HQR that I already mentioned. And then iReady. This is our 2nd year of iReady for elementary level. We are most likely going to extend that into middle school. I say most likely because right now we're piloting with our 6th grade. We just weren't getting the data or the, I'd say, next step instructional resources out of our current assessment platform. We know iReady can provide that. We've seen evidence of that in elementary, so looking to go that way with middle school. Continuing with a couple more reading activities. Exhibitions of learning. This is a direct tie to our strategic plan, our paths that you see here. And so we want to do exhibitions of learning really across the district, as you can see there at all 3 levels. Continued implementation of the Kentucky Equity-Based Tutoring Program. So that has been our summer program that we've paired with Pearson that provides additional tutors, additional funding, an assessment platform. We plan to continue that. And I've promised you data from that. They are doing a big research study. Hopefully next month, she's told me that she can come here, our representative that we work with. If not March, then April, but it will be here soon. We get into math. A lot of these are similar for both reading and math. So again, using that PLC REAL protocol for the essentials. Continuing with math, there was Kentucky Reads to Succeed. Now there's Kentucky Numeracy Counts. Very logical. So they did this legislation several years ago, reading implementation, now starting pretty much this year, but mostly into next, numeracy counts. So working on foundational numeracy or math skills at K through 3. So there's some processes we have to follow there as required by that legislation. Similar to reading, continue with the equity-based tutoring program in the summer. We go on down here, again, repeat. It not only addresses reading, but addresses math with iReady. And then also another piece of numeracy counts. And one more math goal here, again, repeated from reading, are those exhibitions of learning. That's the reading and math section, so I'll stop there and see if you have any questions or clarifications needed. All right, moving on to the next accountability area, which is social studies, science, and writing. So first off, in social studies, we are currently nearly finishing up the, what we call the curriculum review cycle in social studies, and we follow what's called the model curriculum framework. It's a KDE developed process that we're going through. We will continue at least through this year because iReady does not assess social studies. That we'll use what's called MVPA to assess social studies in 8th grade. Moving on to science. We have fully implemented Amplify Science. It's a curriculum, full comprehensive curriculum. We have had that in elementary. This is the first year we've done it with middle school. They've really bought in K through 8, or excuse me, 6 through 8, utilizing that resource. Related to our passage of the portrait and deeper learning, this is a continued discussion we have. How can we integrate other subject areas, cross-curricular? Particularly science. How can we get science into math and language arts? Time is of the essence every day, especially in those elementary classrooms. So how can we 2 birds with 1 stone and address science content in other areas? Amplify Science once again. As I mentioned, we don't have social studies assessment platform, so we continue to use MVPA. Amplify does that for us in science as far as our assessment platform. And then finally in writing, this is actually going to begin tomorrow with a group of teachers that are going to pilot Newsela writing. Writing is, I've been at this a while, 20-some years. Writing is one of the most difficult subjects to teach, one of the most difficult to coach, and one of the most difficult to score. So we're always looking for resources. Newsela is a resource we already have. They've added a writing platform, so really interested to see what we can get out of that. Right now we have it for free. So let's try this pilot for a couple months to see if it's worth our while to use it next year. So that's the social studies, science, and writing. Any questions or clarifications there?
Yeah, you mentioned iReady doesn't have those modules. Is that because they just don't in general, or is there like another package that we could pay for to incorporate those subjects?
Most of your, what you call universal screeners, are only in reading and math.
Okay.
What we have to, and that would go back to, I take that back. MAP did have a science assessment. They added it. But most of them are just those 2 core subject areas, and you have to rely on other resources for science and social studies.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
So I noticed there's a lot of assessment process that goes along with this. can you tell me a little bit more about the assessments that you're using that are not standardized in some capacity to reach these percentage goals? Because I know you've got proficient and distinguished in all of these
Sure.
areas. But what does that look like for a person, say, who doesn't reflect a higher test score, say, in their iReady testing? So
Sure.
how do you know that that learner is meeting their goals?
Well,
Or the district goals?
real quickly, just assessment overall. You've got your universal screener. That's the purpose of iReady. Then you go on down to classroom assessment. Well, let me stop. Before that, universal screener, then there's a diagnostic. Let's say they are scoring lower, so you do a diagnostic to figure out what are the specific skills that they are lacking. If it warrants, then there's intervention provided to make up those skills, and that's for that individual student. For all students, we've got the universal screener, diagnostic is needed, then you go on down to the classroom level where they do more formative assessment, ultimately leading up to summatives. Now, formative are very much teacher controlled. That's a PLC process to where they are developing that formative assessment together. So what you expected in this third grade classroom, you also expect over here, and then finally to the summative. Now, they have tools for those formative and summatives. iReady does have standards mastery assessments. Amplify has those. So those are more pulled and teacher-based through the PLC process there. Does that help?
It does. I understand all those capacities because
Okay.
I have kids in
Sure.
the school system, so I see what they're doing with the summative and formative. But how do you equate that into distinguished and proficient? How do you pull those other pieces to create a percentage to equate to that?
Sure. Well, for the most part, those are only predictors. I mean, you are tracking progress, hence why we do standards-based grading at the elementary. What we're really concerned is that they are achieving, mastering that given standard. And so you put all of that, you got to triangulate where you're looking at all those sources of data to see if that kid mastered that standard.
Okay.
So
that's what they're
it's-
pulling from, and then it equates to
Yeah,
this
so it's
overall
not just one
percentage.
single score.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
It's not just the iReady scores. There's more things that
No.
are being
Now that
filtered into.
universal screener, you're screening
Yes.
everybody. You literally screen. You're going to catch them through that. Should you need those other levels of assessment, the diagnostics specifically.
And I'm assuming iReady self-corrects for like ESL learners and that sort of thing
Yeah,
as far as
there
that
are. Yeah,
diagnostic.
a lot
screener.
of these. Yeah, assessment platforms, curriculum platforms, all are obviously adjusting and have adjusted for quite some time, but continue to adjust for those type of accommodations.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And then I do think when you do the deep dive, Mr. Asher, with the data meeting, it's a really good time to kind of get some of that information because
Yeah.
a lot of it is sort of not really intuitive, but I think those are really good questions. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, and I know we have your individual. That's one of the kind of onboarding things I do, so I will do that with you. Yep.
I'm just getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Achievement gap. In this area, we just want to continue to implement structures, processes that are this is the best icon I could put to this. I do want to go ahead and give my equity report here and put a plug in for some data based on this. We increased proficiency of our free and reduced lunch population by 8% across the board in all of our assessed areas. I'm talking about KSA in reading. So increase of proficiency of 8% in reading and an increase in 7% in math of our free and reduced population. That's growth. It still remains our biggest challenge in terms of our subgroup populations, but that is pretty significant growth. When you're a 5% or above, that's significant. So these type of things right here, these processes right here really lead to those results. What else here? Achievement gap, communicate and implement sustainable district-wide system for ELL progress data, because there are a lot of different components for that. Obviously, we're tracking their language proficiency. That's what the access test is about, but at the same time, we also, their core proficiency, how they are obviously achieving in reading, math, and all core content areas. So it's convoluted when you're looking at all those different things, but our EL team does a great job of doing student tracker that also includes that language proficiency. Questions there on achievement gap? Very much related, but also accountable area, English learner progress. So some similar activities here as I've already talked about, but one specific one, continued PD and training on our Elevation platform that we use. Speaking of, Ms. Gould, when you asked earlier of the accommodations that these different platforms are, Elevation has been an excellent one for us, so continue with that. facilitate individual goal setting, so a motivational piece to encourage growth and motivation for our ELL students. And then finally, a repeat activity from the GAP area, also repeated here in EL Progress. Questions there? You get into the quality of school climate and safety. So this is the indicator is based on that student survey, but it is a good reflection of what's happening in our schools. We are very much dedicated to PBIS, and we'll continue to that. Ms. Oates does a great job, particularly with our school lead meetings that we've implemented there. And the representation varies across schools. It may be a teacher lead, it may be a assistant principal lead, a dean lead. So does a good job keeping us on track there. We want to continue to support another equity plug, both district and school-based equity teams. So that, I know it's really small, but what that represents is our flow chart, or our organizational chart, I should say, with your district equity team above and your school base below. And then also certainly want to continue with our BAR program, Building Assets, Reducing Risk. That's one that we started at the high school, seeing significant growth, particularly in our reduction of failed courses. I think Mr. Reed spoke about that a couple months ago when he was up here. Increased attendance, decreased in tardies, just all the things you want to see, particularly at the high school level, that this it's not solely attributed to this, but it gives us, again, structures and processes to put in the appropriate supports. So this is their first year at middle school, and they're seeing the same of using this, and they're seeing the same kind of results, particularly in their behavior data.
Can we have that data too at the data meeting?
Yeah.
Some bar data,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And finally, okay, so now we're into that are just secondary based, so post-secondary readiness. Let's see here. So this is really college and career readiness. There's a couple activities related to that. A lot of it has to do with the scheduling, that they're scheduled in an appropriate pathway, obviously with the appropriate credits. So they're working on a different scheduling process this year to help that, and then continue to employ our career readiness coordinator, which we've been able to do with those CTE supplemental funds that I've mentioned several times. Pathful, it is a requirement to have an ILP, individual learning plan, that starts in middle school and goes through high school. For several years, when I first came on, it was self-created, and it was just convoluted that they had to go over here and fill out this Google Doc and do this link. Pathful gives us one single platform to follow K through 12, and they can keep building. And then one we've talked a lot about, and just had a meeting with high school today. They've about accomplished dual credit offerings in all of our CTE pathways. So all of our partnerships across all of our universities, they've been able to accomplish that. So definite focus there.
Will that include the fire science that's going
Working
to get
on it.
launched? Working on that one? Okay. I mean, I know it's not there yet.
That'd
so
be
I just,
with BCTC, so working on that one.
Okay. Perfect.
You know, we've updated you a lot on that.
Yep.
Chief emailed me today about going up to Fern Creek over in Louisville. They have a first-rate program that he wants to take a look at, and I asked these kind of questions of how they do that.
Perfect.
Finally, graduation rate, which we are really high. We were at just shy of 97% last year, so we want to get to that 97 mark. And BAR is, again, a repeated activity, but certainly addresses graduation rate as well. Questions there? So we continue on this Plan, Do, Study, Act. That's continuous improvement. And just to illustrate, we rely on both the strategic plan and the CDIP. As you can see, the CDIP's a little more cut and dry, whereas our strategic plan is more vision. But you put the two of those things together, and that's where we get our continuous improvement from. So I'll take any questions or comments you may have. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. Go Jackets.
Yeah, go enjoy the game. All right. Do we have any opportunity for audience or public comment? Nope. All right. We'll move on. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda? Got a motion by Mr. Wilson.
Second.
A second by Ms. McCowan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, next we have our regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve treasurer's report for January financial report? Motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second.
second by Ms. McCowan. Mr. Smith?
All right, good evening. If you'll reference the balance sheet, our general fund through the end of January 2025, the general fund balance is $13,112,006.76. If you'll, I did want to start pointing out the revenue and expenditures control. This may be helpful. For the year, we've taken in $33,724,862.87. Our expenditures so far for the year have been $20,846,251.83. The net change for the period was we took in $1,109,757.31 in revenue, and we spent $3,072,098.15. The special revenue fund, Fund 2, is the grant fund. The ending balance is $235,592. I would explain here, there's been a lot of questions about the federal government, what they're doing with USAID and some of their, not USAID, the USAID, Department of Education. Our federal grants, I looked this up earlier in the week, are a little over $2 million. So that's the number that we're talking about when it comes to Woodford County and potential issues with federal aid and the grants. So I haven't heard anything in regards to that. I just wanted to give you that number so that you know what is at stake there.
And those $2 million are for specific programs within the district.
Yeah, that's predominantly the title grants and the IDEA, which is a special education grant.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
I did have a question there. We got a resource from an email out. So it did have the $2.1 million Department of Education funding, but it also listed $1.8 million in Department of Agriculture funding for the school meals program. And then also their number was 18 educator jobs. So I just wanted to share that additional information.
Thank you. Fund 21, the district activity fund, so the fund balance is $494,093 there. Fund 25 is the school activity fund. Ending fund balance is $606,527.13. 310, the capital outlay fund, just a flow through fund again. The ending balance as of right now is $180,660. The building fund, 320, again, another flow through, ending balance $4,273,928. Fund 360, the construction fund, which houses the projects that we were discussing earlier. The ending balance as of the end of January is $8,226,190.81. Fund 400 is the flow through that we pay the debt service out of. It shows $4,668,145. So that's what we paid in bond payments so far this year. Fund 51, the food service fund, the fund balance as right at the end of January, $906,657.73. I do always want to point out, because of the way we have to do end of year adjusting journal entries, you'll see that there's a entry up in 7,700 O&P, these deferred inflows and outflows that have to sit there through the year that really skew that number. So I prefer to look at what are called proprietary funds, which are your food service and your daycare program. The better way, I think, for people to view those is your revenue and expenditure control. That shows basically your revenues over your expenditures. So we've taken in for the year $1,521,480.68, and we've spent $1,287,564.75. So, we're approximately $250,000 to the good revenue over expenditures in the food service fund for this year. The next fund is the daycare fund, Fund 52. Same thing. The fund balance is $1,276,634. If you look at the revenue control, $1,343,105.43 of revenue that we've taken in for the year versus $362,746.10 of expenditure. And I always caveat that the daycare is still operating out of a grant, a sizable grant that we received during COVID, that there's still some dollars in. So we'll get out of that grant very soon, and the expenditures will actually look more like that they would on a normal year, but that's why the daycare fund looks a little bit overinflated. So that's the balance sheet recap. What questions do you have for me on the financials?
With the food service, so you mentioned we're positive right now, and just to kind of go back a little bit, that's where we were kind of in trouble a little bit on the food service because we had the free program that we needed to cancel after the year because we were losing too much and it was going to be negative, correct?
That's correct. Last year when we did the CEP program, and it really has to go back with the reimbursement rates that we get on the participation. We burned through a sizable fund balance from the prior year, around $700,000 worth of cash that we burned through last year. So yes, to see that fund going back to the positive is very encouraging.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a question about the CPE? And I'm sorry, I know that we've talked about this before, but help me understand. So with that, us losing that was because the use was not high enough, or the free reduced lunch forms were not filled out enough, or how did that exactly happen? And can we ever go back to CPE again?
Sure.
Because I would love to go back to CPE.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's why we wanted to try it. Obviously, we know that's a good thing for the community. Sort of like student insurance. We know that's a good thing if we can insure the kids. We know that's a good thing if we can feed the kids for free. Well, what happens, I don't think it was really a matter of filling the forms out or not having enough folks fill the forms out. It really has to do, and I'd have to probably bring Courtney to be able to fully explain this. It's really based on the reimbursement rates that we get. Every district, from my understanding, is different on the reimbursement you get based on income levels, right?
And they set a baseline to meet the guidelines to get in the program, and we just barely got in the program, which affects your rate, your reimbursement rate. You don't get the full reimbursement as some of the other districts. Say in Floyd County, it had 78% free and reduced lunch. They got, almost full reimbursement. So that's kind of, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it too. The reimbursement that Woodford County was getting was not to the level that would allow us to sustain that program. Obviously, the cash burn through, because nothing's changed with the way we've operated the program from the prior year, which we had a really good fund balance. Last year we burned through a lot of cash, and now we're kind of recouping that fund balance. So nothing's really changed on the operating expense side of things. It was really all about the revenue. And so from the way I understood the program and going through with Ms. Quire, it was really just the reimbursement rate, as Mr. Atkins explained, that was causing the issue with us. And so could we reevaluate it? I think absolutely that's always on the table. One of the things that's always on the table is that there are potentially, you can look at it by location if that's something the board wanted to do. So.
Well, I do wonder as well, with the change in the economy and that sort of thing, do you think the reimbursement rate may shift in some capacity, or that maybe we might have more individuals that would qualify for free and reduced lunch that may change that rate? So if we could we evaluate that year to year and see, or is that something we would have to do with our budget ahead of time?
No, I think it's evaluated at the state level every year regardless. As Mr. Atkins mentioned, they're always submitting to us the information as to how we qualify, what schools qualify, that sort of thing. So I think they're looking at that annually.
Oh, great.
And so I believe that's absolutely something that could be on the table to evaluate every year, and should be.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
Could I ask a couple questions? I'm glad you brought up the federal money, the $2 million in federal grants, and then Ms. Springate mentioned the 1.8 for Department of Ag. Because I know where I work, we're facing those same kinds of things. So suddenly, you have a budget for the year, and it's like, okay, if these changes go into effect immediately or in the very near future, we have to really take stock of what's happening and maybe make some changes. I don't know. But I also understood, that we may not know until May potentially, if any of these things that are happening will trickle down to us here. So my question is does that change anything about this year, number one, about what we're doing and sort of how we have budgeted and how we're operating? And then my second question is that going to change the way we budget for this coming fiscal year in FY26?
So to answer that, I think, the first thing I would say is that with these federal grants, so I mentioned IDEA and Title, just about all of those grant dollars go to fund positions. And so I think if something were to that definitely come down the pike, that's a decision that's going to have to, or conversation that's going to have to be had as to how we subsidize those positions in the event that the federal dollars were to be cut off, obviously. I think 18 positions is what you mentioned, so I think that's something that's going to have to be figured out how to offset or subsidize those 18 positions. We have not had any conversations yet just because, for this year, because everything's so undetermined at this point. We don't know anything definitive about what's going to happen. We've sort of heard that with all the things going on with the federal government, that what's likely to happen is that if the U.S. Department of Ed is dissolved, the dollars are still flowed through to the state, essentially bypassing the Department of Ed, the U.S. Department of Ed, and going to the states. And so if that's the case, then we're still going to continue to maintain the dollars to some reasonable amount as we've been getting. I have not heard any information through the state otherwise in either direction. So I don't know. And I think it's probably premature to have an in-depth conversation about that until we know for certain what that looks like. It's kind of just much to do about nothing potentially, pomp and circumstance potentially. And so, but obviously it's something we would have to definitely discuss in the event that were to come to fruition.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report, January financial report?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Next we have, can I have a motion to accept notification of personnel matters?
So moved. Second.
All right. All right, motion by Ms. McCown, second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to accept notification of payment of bills?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. McCowan, second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes 4-1. Can I have a motion to approve minutes of the January 8th, 2025 special called board meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wilson,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Gould. All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 27th, 2025 regular board meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second?
second by Ms. McCowan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to approve FY26 mowing grounds care bid?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second?
second by Ms. McCowan. Any discussion? Or, well, Mr. Smith's up here to talk about it.
Yeah, just real quick. So we put out a formal bid, RFP bid for this year. We'd like to award the mowing and grounds bids for the locations to the Clausen Group for the amounts listed on the document.
Anybody have any questions?
I did just have a question. So is this, I think we used to do this in-house, right? Like we did all of our mowing and our maintenance and our bus care and those sorts of things for the most part in-house in the past. Is this something new that we're now contracting out with someone, or how long has this kind of been?
So we've been contracting parts of it out for several years, and it's, we're still doing some of it in-house. So this is most of the campuses, and with the addition of the new high school, which is approximately 43 acres that we have to maintain. And so I think at some point they probably did do it all in-house, but it's just gotten to the point where it's more efficient actually from a dollars and cents standpoint, because it takes activity away from our maintenance staff when they could be working on things in the buildings, away from that to have to mow and take care of all the acres that we have to take care of. So we've been paying for most of this for several years. So it's not like this is new expense dollars. We just wanted to, it's gotten to the point where I wanted to do a formal RFP on it and get it consolidated and get, I felt like we could get better pricing, and I think we have gotten better pricing to put it out for bid, so.
And I've looked at this earlier and I may have missed it, but does this include snow removal on sidewalks as well, or is?
It does not include snow removal. We do all that in-house. so,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I know that there was some concern about the snow that was on the sidewalk between the middle school and the high school during some of those events. So I was just wondering if this would include that piece.
That does not, but we can definitely look at that, because I know that's gonna be something we're gonna have to contend with now with the high school over there. So,
Definitely a learning curve for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think at one point we weren't sure who was responsible for that. We didn't know if it was the community, apartment community, or the city, or us, or who. So that's something that I know Sherman was reaching out to try to determine what we needed to do with that. So as far as that piece, that sidewalk.
And so this bid is for right under $24,000, and is that for a calendar year, or how much? What is that?
So it's
Full year, calendar year?
It's $2,675 per mow. And so, the mow is approximately 28 times per year. Just depends on the growing season, if you have a lot of rain, little rain, what have you, but that's the per mow price.
Any other questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the CDIP Comprehensive District Improvement Plan?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second.
second by Ms. McCowan. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And then we had the amendment to becoming letter H to approve the March 3rd DECA field trip for the state competition in Louisville.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McCowan,
Second.
second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Discussion items. So the first one, letter A there, public comment policy. So I know we've had some questions and inquiries just about opening up public comment to just be kind of open to anybody that comes in. We did attach a copy of the public participation in open meetings policy there. One of the things that I just wanted to draw attention to is there is right there individuals, groups, and/or employees who wish to suggest an item for the board's agenda shall make such request in writing to the secretary of the board at least 5 days prior to the next scheduled meeting. Also, obviously, people have the ability to reach out to board members so that we can look at all those. So I just wanted to open this up for discussion to get everybody's feedback as we continue that conversation.
I was glad you attached this because I think the way that it's written, I don't know that any changes are needed to it. I think it's just the way that it has been interpreted. And I think the key words are, at least 15 minutes. So at a minimum, we've got to give 15 minutes. And then it says the chairperson may rule on the relevance of the topic to the board's agenda. Does not say shall. So I don't think that that would preclude us from allowing people, if they have something on their mind and they feel like it's, something that they need to share, I don't think that that would keep us from being able to hear them. And it's the same kind of with that last sentence where it says the chairman may establish time limits for speakers. Because, for a while it was like 4 minutes or 3 minutes a person or something like that. So, I think that's good. I don't know that we need to stifle anybody, so.
Well, I'm glad that you brought it up and that we're just having a discussion. I absolutely think we should be as permissive as possible to allow as much input and as much discussion and as much participation as possible. And I do think the only thing is that I think in the past there may have been some discretion by the board. Maybe if you didn't want to hear a certain opinion or you didn't want to have to deal with that.
Could you give some examples of that?
Yeah, for instance, like we would have, the requirement would be made that you would have to be on the agenda. The item would have to be on the agenda. But sometimes we would have folks come and speak and the item wasn't on the agenda. But other times we would have folks come and speak to an item on the agenda and they would not be allowed. So I think it's just important to be consistent. So if the rule is 3 minutes, that needs to apply to people we want to hear for 3 minutes and people we don't want to hear that might disagree with something. So I think it's just important to be consistent and to have one rule for everybody. And so I think that, that's just, I think, a key value of mine and I hope of the board's.
I was referring more to the comment that some people weren't allowed because some people didn't want to hear them.
I think that has happened, that we have had times when folks have come in and have an item that's not on the agenda and they have been said, sure, speak. The limit is 3 minutes, speak as long as you would like. And then other times we would have folks come in and say, I think it's tied to this item. And they would be told, no, we don't think so. You're not going to be permitted to speak. Or you're going to be permitted to speak for only, 2 minutes, but this person can speak for 5 or 10. So I just think we have to be consistent.
The chair would pick and choose who he or she wanted to hear and how long they could speak?
Well, that may have happened, but I do think that it says may and not shall. And so I think that it's important that we have the discussion so that we can all kind of have the same consensus. My personal value is that we should be as permissive as possible and allow folks to contribute and be heard. Obviously there have to be limits, but the limits should be the same to folks that we agree with and folks that we disagree with. And I just think we have to be super careful about that because when you're in the moment, you might not be really aware or cognizant of that. So I just think we have to be super careful to be fair to everyone all the time and to have the same rule that applies to everyone all the time.
When it comes to the rule of how long they can speak, what would you suggest that rule be, the time limit?
I'm open to any ideas. It doesn't specifically say in here. Sometimes we've been told folks can only speak for 3 minutes. Sometimes we've said groups can do 5. I do think it would be a good idea to just have that firm understanding with everyone so that folks aren't coming in thinking, oh, I've got a group, I can speak for 5, and then being told, nope, sorry, only 3. Or folks coming in thinking, well, I'm going to speak as long until I finish my, whatever, because you've got 15 minutes and I'm the only one here. So I just think we just need to be consistent and be really clear, because I just think that's, even if you disagree with someone, if you're consistent and clear and fair, then I think that makes all the difference in the world.
Cool. And for my part, I wanted to bring this up and share this as well because, like Ms. McCowan said, I don't think we need to change anything about the policy. It's more of what we do in practice. I do want to be cognizant that we want to make sure that people are guided in what they want to talk about. So, for instance, if somebody emails, reaches out to the superintendent or any of us board members ahead of time, lets us know what they would want to talk about, that can be communicated to me, and we can put that on the discussion. Because I don't feel like in the past we used the discussion avenue very much. So I think that would be a really good way to have the public communicate with us, is to reach out so that we have a heads up on what they want to talk about. And then we can see, hey, you know what, maybe this topic is more of a site-based, or maybe it's more of a specific issue that might be better for a specific principal or the superintendent directly, or something that may not be board business. And that way we can guide them instead of asking them to come up and speak and then afterwards saying, oh yeah, that really wasn't for us. Like, you need to go to this person. so if we have a little bit of practice where they reach out to us, you can send it to me as chair, we can talk about, does that make sense to have on the discussion? Because then it puts it on the agenda, right?
That
And
would
then,
be a
and then they
wonderful-
can talk about it
wonderful change.
at the public comment, because now it is part of the agenda. So that's kind of how I would like to address that in practice,
Sounds wonderful.
if everybody's okay with that.
What if you have a situation, and I'm just thinking of something, but you have someone reach out to you, and I always encourage people to do public comment because I just think, you know, even if nobody hears it, it's good to speak about what you feel is important. But let's say somebody wants to talk about safety, school safety, or, you know, some issue that they may be experiencing. Maybe we don't know about it. They haven't emailed us, but they come to this meeting and we don't have like a safety presentation. With that, I mean, I would like to still allow those kinds of things.
So where I worry that would go is if they come up and say, this happened in this classroom and I need you to
Sure.
do something about it, because that's not really something that we
Sure.
can address and do. So I think that's why I still like to have some type of, we're aware of what they want to talk about in topics so that we can make sure this is the right forum for that. But again, it does say in here,
know.
there's some discretion in there. So if they
Yeah.
come in and we know where they fill it out on the public comment, maybe we look at that. I just want to make sure that we're giving the floor to board business that we
Sure.
can actually do something about.
I wonder if we, before the public comment, like if there's just some verbiage that can be read every time, like, you know, it's time for a public comment. It's important, you know, that you speak not about people, not about, you know, specific individuals, but I don't know, I think that there's some language that we can include, because I just think when I look at other meetings like city council, fiscal court, they can get up, they ask people to get up all through the meeting. I mean, you can, so I think that's,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, I would like to address this as, let's give people the knowledge that they can reach out to us, the superintendent or board members.
Thank you.
We can look at those, talk about them, and if it makes sense for the board, we can put it on the discussion, which puts it on the agenda. And then, of course, like I said, there's discretion if somebody does come with something that we can look at.
I think that makes sense. It's good to use the discussion as discussion. I know when Mr. Wilson was chair, you know, he would go around at the end of the meeting, does anyone have discussion? And you could, as a board, just, you know, talk about things. It was very nice and refreshing. So that way, if there was something like, you know, tonight I might say, hey, you know, we haven't scheduled the data meeting. Can we go ahead and get that scheduled? Just, you know, that kind of thing. That was just very, it was a really good practice, I thought, and made for a really good board, so.
All right.
Thank you for putting that on the agenda.
Yes.
this evening.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
And thank you for everybody's comments on that, too. They were all very pertinent.
All right, the next item on the discussion, I wanted to put the superintendent search update on there, just to give everyone kind of where are we. So we do have 2 of the positions for the superintendent screening committee have been filled, myself being one of them as the board representative. We also have Mr. Joe Albert as our principal representative, who's principal at Simmons. Nominations have closed for the 2 teacher spots and the 1 classified employee spot, and voting began today. So we don't have those results yet. Voting will end on Friday, and those with the most votes will be notified by our KSBA representative, Don Martin. Parent nominations end on Wednesday, February 26th. The nomination information will then be delivered to the Woodford County Public School PTO presidents for their discussion and vote. And then the ad and job posting for superintendent went up on February 6th, and we are currently receiving responses. March 12th, we'll close the application process. The Woodford County Superintendent Search Survey is still open, and we welcome any and all participation. So most parents, community members, students, staff saw that go out.
How long is that out for?
Do we know when we're closing that? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have that we already have over 250 responses and are hoping for many more.
Well, I want to push that. I'll publicize that some more so
Yeah.
we can leave it open for
Yep.
a bit.
And maybe if the district could publicize that again
yeah.
too, somehow, you know, just kind of really push and let people
Yeah,
know.
and we purposefully are going to leave it open also past the forum so that we can also remind anybody that joins the public forum that it's out there and they can also utilize that.
Thank you.
Which is on March 4th at 6 p.m. in the new high school auditorium. So that's our public forum. We're going to hold that to gain community input on the candidate qualities and attributes that the public values in the next superintendent. The Board of Education members will be in attendance to listen, but not to respond to questions, so that's very important. Public forum is to take input. It's not for the board to have the discussion and conversation about the feedback that we receive. You can also email your comments prior to the forum, and we can post the contact information for our KSBA representative. That's pretty easy, don.martin@ksba.org. And we do want to make sure that for the public forum, anyone that participates limits your comments to characteristics or attributes of candidates and not specific names.
I think when we discussed this earlier, there was some talk about
You want to hit your,
where you could hook up on Teams to watch it.
Oh, is it going to be
oh,
live
the
stream?
virtual,
I
have
did
we-
have somebody
the
ask
public
if it was
forum?
gonna
Yeah.
be.
I think you brought it up last time.
Yeah.
Maybe.
yeah. We can,
Did
yeah,
you say yes?
yes,
Oh, good.
mhm, yes.
And if it is live streamed, are we going to have somebody monitor the comments to be able to contribute?
We're gonna live stream it, but we won't have comments.
Okay.
It'll
that's what I
just be live streamed.
Okay, perfect, thank you. But you can email your comments in ahead of time.
Yes. All right. Anybody got anything else to talk about?
On the superintendent search, Sherry and Sarah may.
You want to hit your mic?
But Don did a fantastic job at his, I mean, he laid it out so clearly and so distinctly. It was, he did a wonderful job.
Good.
Yeah, we actually got to meet, there's going to be somebody else working with Don on this, on our search. And his name is Tim Abrams, I think, because he introduced himself. So I guess we'll get to know him
Perfect.
as well. But
Great.
yeah, very good.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. We have, so now we have motion to go into executive session. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation pursuant to KRS 61.810, 1 and C.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second.
second by Ms. McCowan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Thank you all
motion
for coming this evening. Will there be any action afterwards?